harmless variety native to Central and South America. And he is known commonly as the yellow-tailed crebo. And now, to those not familiar with snakes, the snake, they might seem cold and slimy. So like I said earlier, they are cold-blooded, which means their body temperature is the same as their surroundings, not that they're always cold. And as for being slimy, a snake has no real reason to be slimy, so they're just not. Some snakes have smooth, shiny scales that from a distance actually appear slimy. But other snakes like this guy here, they actually have enlarged ridges down the center of each scale that feel abrasive to the touch. Now this snake, you might have known that you might have seen that he's occasionally sticking his forked tongue out at everyone. So he's not actually being rude, he is simply smelling his environment. So talking about snakes and actually many lizards, they pick up particles in the air and they bring them back into the mouth to a specialized organ on the upper jaw known as the Jacobson's organ. And the sense of smell is probably a snake's single most important sense. As a rule, you will always rely on that sense of smell over any other sense, particularly when identifying food. Most snakes seem to think so. Now, this next snake here is actually probably one of my personal favorites. Now this is Marilyn, and she is our albino Burmese python. Normally, they're kind of greenish brown or even kind of black colored. And the Burmese python, they are fairly large, as snakes go anyways. I think the largest ever Burmese python found was about 22 to 23 feet long. Very friendly snake today. So
It's in his pocket.
Pocket. It's a girl.
Oh, look at that.
So that Burmese python, big like 22 or 23 feet long, was only about like 150 or 200 pounds. Now the largest snake of the world, we've all heard of them, and they are known as the green anaconda. And now the green anaconda, they can grow to be about 25 feet in length and weigh in excess of 3 and even 400 pounds. And then probably the longest snake in the world is known as the reticulated python. And those guys, they're actually very commonly known to grow more than 30 feet in length. But like I said, like these guys are very long, skinny snakes. Reticulated python at 30 feet probably only weigh 100 or 150 pounds. Now thankfully, the Burmese python is non-venomous. She's been holding her, so she uses constriction to kill her prey. So she strikes out there, fights under her prey, brings that animal. I think I was just tucking. Brings that animal in real tight. Throws a few coils around that animal and begins to squeeze. Now constrictors, they squeeze with such force that that animal is unable to breathe, which quickly stops the heart. Now this isn't like you see in the movies where they're crushing and breaking every single bone in the animal's body. And it actually is very, very rare for a constrictor to break any bones during constriction. Classified into 3 basic groups. So the first group, they are known as the rear fang snakes, and obviously as it says in the name, the other fangs are found in the very rear of the mouth. And then the next 2 groups, they're known as the front fang snakes, and we'll get back to those here in a second. This guy here, he is known as the mangrove snake, and he is part of that first group, the rear fangs. Now, rear fang snakes, actually this snake specifically, they don't actually have the ability to truly inject their venom. Instead, he has to bite onto his prey, and then he works that animal to the rear of its mouth, and he has to hang on until that venom runs out of their venom glands and down into that animal's wound. Now, it's easy to imagine how these venom systems evolve when you realize that even the most toxic snake venoms are just modified forms of saliva. So perhaps, the early snakes, they developed grooves in their teeth that allowed saliva to run into their prey for more efficient digestion, eventually developing toxins which also aided in killing their prey. Now, because of their fangs, actually the vast majority of rear fang snakes are completely harmless to creatures the size of a human being. However, just because death is the worst outcome doesn't mean that the other ones are very pretty. We actually had a guy get bit by one of these mangrove snakes about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And he's a big meathead kind of guy, and he's always trying to show off to the ladies. And somehow that snake reached over and bit him right in the shoulder. This snake here, he is a semi-aquatic pit viper native in the southeastern part of the United States, known as the cottonmouth. The cottonmouth, like all vipers, they have very, very long fangs. So long, in fact, if they're to actually sit permanently erect like the elapid's fangs do, they would stick out through the bottom of the snake's mouth. Now, however, since you don't see any fangs sticking out through the bottom of the snake's face, when they're not being used, they fold up to the roof of the mouth. They kind of act like a hinge system, like your elbow does, or your knee. Now, these vipers, they actually have this unique ability that allows them to open their jaws to nearly 180 degrees, so that their fangs are sticking directly out in front of them. Now, vipers, they don't even have to bite their prey, like the elapids or the rear fang snakes do. They basically just have to reach out there and they strike their prey, they poke you with those fangs, that venom is injected, and they sit back and wait for you to succumb to the venom. As long as I get half patient. Now, like I briefly mentioned before, pit vipers are just snake. He is a pit viper. Like I said before, I don't know what I'm talking about. Pit vipers, they have a sense that we do not have. So they actually have tiny heat-seeking pits between their eyeballs and their nostrils. And these heat-seeking pits, they can actually sense the minute changes in the temperature around them. So when they're in a cave or when they're in a hole, hunting, they can use this sense to actively locate and strike their warm-blooded prey each year. It's a lot more fun to show you that. Now, by this definition, the deadliest snake, is the most common snake and the most densely populated part of the world. Most people go barefoot, short pants, and medical attention is not readily available. And this snake, he's actually responsible for about 20,000 human fatalities each year and about 4 times as many amputations. He's actually a snake you've all heard of before, and he is known as the monocle cobra. Now, a cobra, they usually bring to mind a snake charmer playing a flute for a snake as it seems to rhythmically sway to the rhythm of the music. Now, however, snakes that do not have any external ears, they're not really listening to that music, and instead, they are following the motion of the snake charmer as he himself. Now, because of their elevated position in their hooded form, a cobra strike is a forward